The moment he walked through the door, I knew something was wrong. He didn't say, "Hi," or ask how my day was. Instead, he tossed his aviator sunglasses onto the counter like he was starring in some second-rate movie. His suit was too crisp, his watch too shiny, and his suitcase? It looked like it belonged to someone else's life, one far more glamorous than what we could afford. "Thanks for the upgrade, babe," he grinned, rolling that suitcase across our hardwood floor like a trophy. His name is Bryce, and for the past 8 years, he's been my husband. I'm Monica, 42 years old, and I work in digital risk management here in Portland, Oregon. He thinks I'm too serious, too cautious, but someone in this marriage has to keep the lights on. Bryce always had big ideas: real estate, crypto, flipping luxury watches. You name it. But behind that ambition was a man who couldn't hold down a job longer than a season. I used to think his charm was ambition. Now I wonder if it was just distraction. That night, as he bragged about first-class flights and Michelin star meals, I said nothing. I just watched him talk, watched how his eyes lit up, not from seeing me, but from reliving the high of money he couldn't have earned. Money I never gave him. See, Bryce made a mistake, and not the kind you recover from with flowers and an apology. A week before his little European escape, he waited until I was asleep, snuck into my office, and used my work laptop. What he didn't know is that I specialize in fraud detection training. The credit card he stole wasn't just any card. It was a decoy, a digital landmine meant to teach Fortune 500 companies how to detect criminal behavior. Every swipe, every charge, automatically flagged and reported to federal authorities. And he walked straight into it. He thought he'd outsmarted me. But the truth? He turned himself into a case study. His case. What do we lose when we love someone who keeps us in the dark? And more importantly, what do we gain when we finally turn the lights on? After that night, I didn't say a word. Not when he left a note on the fridge, taking some time for myself. Don't wait up. Not when his Instagram filled up with rooftop selfies in Rome and luxury boutiques in Paris. And definitely not when the first fraud alerts rolled in at 4:13 a.m. Chanel, 4 Seasons, 2 Rolexes in 1 hour. Bryce wasn't just spending stolen money. He was building a fantasy, a life he always wanted but couldn't earn. He looked so at home in those photos. So comfortable in someone else's shoes, literally. Gucci loafers, size 11. But what he didn't know was that the shoes he was walking in had been booby-trapped. Every transaction he made set off alerts. Every 5-star dinner and spa package sent automated reports to our compliance systems, and directly to federal partners. I had designed that system. I didn't stop him, I watched. Because sometimes you have to let a lie run its full course before you expose it. Especially when the liar believes he's untouchable. 3 days in, I got the call I'd been waiting for. "Ms. Reynolds, this is Agent Lucas Keller with the Financial Crimes Division. We've tracked significant fraudulent activity tied to one of your work accounts. Are you aware of any possible suspects?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes. It's my husband." There was a pause on the line. "Your husband?" "I work in cybersecurity," I said evenly. "He accessed a training card. Everything he's spent is being monitored. I've logged every charge." Agent Keller's tone changed immediately, focused, impressed. "We'll need a formal statement, but from what you've told me, he's in serious legal jeopardy." Good. Because this wasn't a mistake. Bryce didn't slip up. He chose to violate my trust, my career, and my name. And the worst part? He never looked back. Not once. He didn't call, didn't ask if I was okay. He just vanished into indulgence, believing I'd be too soft or too blind to stop him. But I wasn't blind. Not anymore. By the end of that week, Chloe, my attorney, and Agent Keller had built a case airtight enough to make any defense attorney sweat. Every screenshot, every receipt, every IP address. We had it all. And still, I waited. Because there's a power in silence, in letting someone believe they've gotten away with it just long enough for them to get comfortable. He thought he was smarter than me. He thought I'd never figure it out. But the truth? He was just a thief playing dress-up, wearing a borrowed life, bought with counterfeit courage. And soon, it would all come crashing down. The night Bryce came back felt like déjà vu wrapped in irony. He strolled in like a returning hero, his luggage thudding against the doorframe as if it belonged in a music video. His hair was windblown just so, his tan fresh and arrogant. He had on a new leather jacket, Balmain, if I'm not mistaken, and a smug grin that screamed, "You're lucky to have me! Guess who's back?" he sang, dumping a bag full of duty-free colognes and designer crap onto the couch. Europe was exactly what I needed. I feel reborn, Monica. I didn't flinch. I didn't ask questions. I just smiled politely, leaning against the counter, sipping chamomile tea, while I mentally noted the return timestamp, 9:47 p.m. He chuckled at my silence. "Come on, don't be mad. Look, I brought you something." From the depths of his shopping bag, he pulled out a pair of earrings. Real diamonds? Maybe. More likely a duty-free splurge he grabbed on the way back, to soften whatever blow he figured was coming. "I thought about you every day," he said, placing them on the table. I met his eyes. "Funny, I didn't think about you at all." That made him pause, just for a beat, but Bryce was too intoxicated with himself to read between the lines. He headed to the bathroom to wash off the jet lag. I heard him humming in the shower, a stupid pop song that used to play on loop when we were still trying to make things work. I remember how we danced to it in the kitchen once, back when I thought being patient would fix what was broken between us. But now I was done fixing. As he steamed up the bathroom mirror, with delusions of untouchability, I pulled out my phone and texted Chloe. "He's back, ready to move forward." She responded instantly. "Perfect. Agent Keller will notify the team." Every piece of this had been lined up, domino style. His return was the final push. His unknowing arrogance had sealed the lid on the coffin he built himself. I paced slowly through the apartment, breathing in the silence before the storm. The weight that had crushed my chest for years was already lifting. Bryce thought he'd gotten away with it. But what he didn't know was that he had been under surveillance for days. His purchases tracked, his movements logged, his voice recorded. Yes, I recorded the entire conversation earlier. Every lie, every confession disguised as a brag. He had practically narrated his own downfall. It was stored on a secure drive, time-stamped, clean, ready to be sent to the authorities. He walked out of the bathroom in a cloud of citrus-scented body wash and ego, towel slung low around his hips. He flopped onto the couch and dug into his duffel bag, pulling out a gold watch still tagged. "You should have seen Paris, babe. The views from the penthouse? Insane!" "I'm sure," I said, sitting across from him with arms folded. "Tell me everything." And he did. God, he did. Every detail spilled out of him like a monologue. About the caviar, the champagne, the silk sheets. He laughed about how nobody suspected a thing, especially not me. Every word he said made the recording more damning. He wasn't confessing. He was boasting, because that's who Bryce was, always more focused on the illusion than the consequences. As the hour grew later, I noticed him glance at his phone. His smile slipped when he saw the bank alerts. "Weird," he muttered, tapping the screen. "My account's frozen. Must be a glitch." He looked at me then, confusion creeping into his perfect little mask. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm great." There was no satisfaction in watching someone unravel, not in the way you expect. It's not a movie climax with slow-motion heartbreak and music swelling in the background. It's quieter, more surgical. You watch a person's world fold in on itself and realize it was built on borrowed time to begin with. He noticed my silence and started getting restless. The cracks were forming. I let him squirm. Just before bed, I sent one final message to Agent Keller. "He's confessed. On tape. Whenever you're ready." The reply was short. "Understood. Stand by. As I lay in bed that night, the apartment finally dark and still, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for Bryce to change. I wasn't hoping he'd wake up and finally be the man I married. He wasn't coming back to me. He was heading straight for justice, and I was finally, free to watch him walk into it. The next evening, as Bryce scrolled through his phone on the couch, oblivious, relaxed, smug, I heard a knock at the front door. 3 slow, deliberate taps. Not the kind that says neighbor, the kind that says official business. My heart didn't race. I'd been waiting for this. I opened the door to find Agent Keller standing there, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. His presence wasn't intimidating, but it was absolute. A calm, quiet kind of authority, like a storm that didn't need thunder to be dangerous. "Good evening, Ms. Reynolds," he said, his tone warm but focused. "Is your husband home?" I stepped aside and nodded. "He's right inside." They walked in together, measured and professional. Bryce looked up from the couch, half laughing at some meme on his phone, until he saw the badges. "What the hell is this?" he said, sitting upright. Agent Keller approached him calmly. "Mr. Bryce Reynolds, you're under investigation for multiple counts of credit card fraud and unauthorized use of financial accounts. We'd like you to come with us for questioning." Bryce's tan face drained of color. He looked at me, searching for an ally. "Monica? What is this? This is insane. You know I didn't—" I folded my arms. "You've been very busy, Bryce. Maybe it's time you explain it to someone who cares." His voice cracked. "This is a mistake. You're my wife. You're supposed to have my back." I tilted my head. "And you were supposed to not steal $50,000 from me." The room felt frozen in that moment, like time had paused to listen. As the officers read him his rights, he kept pleading, protesting, as if his charm might still bail him out. But no one was buying it now. Not me. Not the law. Not even himself. "You won't get away with this," he snapped as they led him out in handcuffs. I gave a dry smile. "Oh, Bryce. I already have." The door closed behind them with a satisfying click. I stood there in the silence, the echo of that moment ringing louder than any fight we'd ever had. He was gone. Really gone. Not just out of the apartment, but out of my life. An hour later, Chloe called. "He's with Keller now," she said, her voice even. "Already trying to spin the story. Says you gave him permission to use the card." I rolled my eyes. "Of course he does." "Don't worry," she said. "We've got the full record. The fraud alerts, his purchases, your recording. There's no loophole here." The next morning, Agent Keller called me directly. "We've got everything we need. Your husband, soon-to-be ex, admitted to using the card, but claims he didn't know it was tied to a fraud detection program." "That tracks," I said, sipping my coffee. "He never did understand consequences." Keller continued. "He's facing multiple charges. The credit companies flagged every purchase under buyer protection, so you're not liable for a cent." The relief hit me like warm sun after a cold, bitter storm. For days I'd been living in the tension, anticipating, calculating, watching it unfold like a slow-motion train wreck. But now, the brakes had finally screeched. Chloe followed up with details later that afternoon. "They're moving ahead with the charges," she said. "He's trying to bargain, typical. But even with a plea deal, he's looking at restitution, community service, and a financial record that'll haunt him for years." I leaned back in my chair. "Sounds like a fitting future." She chuckled. "He always wanted to live large. Now he gets to see what it's like on the other side of the system." What hit me hardest wasn't the legal satisfaction. It was the emotional one. For so long, I'd wondered if I was crazy for doubting him. Gaslit into thinking I was too controlling, too suspicious, too cold. But I wasn't crazy. I was right. He was the one building the house of lies. I was just the one who finally stopped painting over the cracks. A few days after the arrest, I got a call from an unknown number. I should have let it go to voicemail. I really should have. But some part of me, a leftover instinct maybe, made me answer. Monica? The voice was barely above a whisper, hoarse and dry. It's me. I didn't respond. Not yet. I just wanted to talk, Bryce continued. Please, just for a minute. I stayed silent. I messed up, okay? I didn't mean for it to go that far. I thought I could fix it before it spiraled. His voice cracked on the word fix, and I almost laughed. Fix it? I said finally. You tried to disappear with 50 grand that didn't belong to you. My name, my reputation, my work. And you wanted to fix it with what? An apology? He didn't answer right away. I thought you loved me, he mumbled. I took a deep breath, something deep and tired and final in my chest. I did, Bryce. I loved the man I thought you were. The one who said we were building something together. Not the man who looked me in the eye while stealing from me behind my back. He said nothing. I could hear the shallow rhythm of his breath, the sound of someone unraveling slowly. But I didn't feel sorry for him, not anymore. Before he could say anything else, I hung up. I didn't block his number. I didn't need to. That conversation wasn't a turning point. It was a final nail. A week later, Chloe called with an update. He took a plea deal, she said. No jail time, but he'll have to pay back every cent he stole. Community service, too. And his credit's going to be trashed for a long, long time. I nodded, staring at the wine glass in my hand. Good. He always wanted luxury. Now he can learn what it costs when it's not earned. You sure you're okay? She asked gently. I looked around the apartment, quiet, clean, mine, and smiled. I think for the first time in years, I actually am. That night, I poured myself a full glass of Cabernet, curled up on the couch, and pulled out the final divorce papers. My name printed alone, no longer attached to his. No more shared accounts, no more shared mistakes. Just freedom. Word spread fast. Among our mutual friends, neighbors, coworkers, everyone eventually found out. The guy who used to brag about always landing on his feet had finally crashed. The photos from his lavish trip were replaced by cold silence. His designer clothes were confiscated. The watch, gone. The flights, canceled. His bank accounts, frozen. And Nicole, the woman I'd always suspected he was seeing behind my back, she dumped him the moment she found out. Apparently, European getaway didn't sound as sexy when it was paid for with federal charges. Sometimes karma doesn't knock. It kicks the door down in a three-piece suit. Weeks passed. I redecorated the apartment, painted the bedroom a soft sage green, replaced our old dishes, changed the locks. It felt symbolic, like I was finally rinsing him out of the walls. And then came the emails. Vague apologies, promises he'd changed, a long, rambling letter about therapy and new beginnings. I read the first few lines, then deleted it. No reply. There was nothing left to say. One Saturday morning, as I sipped my coffee by the window, watching the city hum beneath me, I thought about how far I'd come. Not just from him, but from her. The woman I used to be. The woman who made excuses, who ignored red flags, who carried the weight of someone else's ambition while setting aside her own. That woman's gone now. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even bitter. I'm just free. And maybe that's the real revenge, not the charges, not the community service, not the frozen accounts. The real revenge is that I survived him, and he's stuck living with himself. The envelope didn't look like much. Just a plain white square, no different from junk mail or insurance statements. But when I held it in my hands, I knew. It carried the weight of something final, something irreversible. I tore it open slowly, like peeling back the last layer of a life I no longer lived. At the top, finalized, just one word. Clean, sharp, permanent. My divorce was official. I sat down at the kitchen table, the morning sun spilling across the hardwood floors. For a moment, I just stared at the letter. No tears came, no dramatic wave of emotion, just a quiet exhale that felt like peace. This wasn't what I pictured when I married Bryce. I had imagined partnership, laughter, growth, a life built on trust and stubborn love. But what I got was illusion, a man who needed admiration more than accountability. And now, finally, he was out of my story. Chloe stopped by that afternoon with the last bit of paperwork for the court to process his financial restitution. She wore her signature blazer, no nonsense, and composed. "How are you feeling?" she asked, accepting the coffee I handed her. I didn't have to think about it. "Better than I expected. Lighter." She smiled knowingly. "That's because you won, and not just legally. You reclaimed your life, Monica." As we went through the documents, I realized it wasn't just about the money. Sure, watching him pay back every cent felt justified. But this was about independence, about making decisions without compromise, about building something for myself on my own terms. For years, I thought keeping the peace meant sacrificing little pieces of myself, my voice, my instincts, my worth. I'd been so focused on holding the relationship together that I didn't notice it was bleeding me dry. But now I could finally breathe. That evening, my friend Camille came over with pad thai and a bottle of wine. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. "And to walking away from flaming garbage with your eyebrows intact." I laughed, really laughed, the kind that lives in your chest for hours afterward. We ate on the floor, music playing softly in the background, the apartment feeling more like mine than it ever had before. No more tension in the corners, no more weight in the silence, just calm. Over the next few weeks, I let myself imagine a new life. I painted the walls, took long walks, booked a cabin retreat in northern Washington, solo. It was quiet, nestled in the trees, a place to unplug and just be. For once, I wasn't planning around someone else. No tiptoeing, no adjusting my dreams to make someone else feel bigger. I was choosing me. Occasionally, someone would mention Bryce, a mutual friend, a LinkedIn notification. Apparently, he was bouncing between jobs, still insisting the whole thing had been a misunderstanding. But I didn't care. He was no longer my burden to carry, no longer a shadow in my home or my thoughts. I was free. And that, more than anything, was the life I had always wanted. One that was mine, unapologetically, unbreakably mine. A month passed. The apartment had changed, not just in color or decor, but in energy. It no longer echoed with tension or disappointment. It felt alive, peaceful, like home. One evening, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, wrapped in a soft blanket as the city lights flickered beneath the twilight. A cool breeze rustled the pages of the book on my lap, but I wasn't reading. I was reflecting. Everything that had happened, the betrayal, the unraveling, the legal battle, the silence that followed, it had brought me here. And while it had been brutal, it had also been necessary, because Bryce's betrayal didn't just reveal who he was, it revealed who I was too. I had survived a storm without losing my voice. I had rebuilt a life with my own two hands, and more importantly, I had learned to stop apologizing for being strong. I thought about all the moments I'd kept quiet for the sake of keeping peace, all the ways I'd made myself smaller so he could feel bigger. That part of me was gone now, buried with the last signature on the divorce decree. A few messages still trickled in from people who hadn't heard the full story. Some curious, some shocked. One even asked if I'd ever forgive him. Forgive? I already had. But forgiveness didn't mean return. It didn't mean softness. It meant letting go of the weight, walking forward, and never looking back. I raised my glass to the night sky, quiet and certain. "Here's to me," I whispered. "Here's to finally choosing myself." And with that, I closed the last chapter of the life I once shared with him and opened a new one entirely my own. As we grow older, we learn that love is not just about holding on, it's also about knowing when to let go. Monica's story is a powerful reminder that trust, once broken by betrayal, cannot be mended by charm or empty apologies. Her journey wasn't just about a failed marriage, it was about reclaiming self-worth, standing firm in truth, and choosing peace over chaos. Many of us, especially in our later years, have carried silent burdens to preserve family, reputation, or simply the idea of togetherness. But peace built on fear or sacrifice is not peace at all. Monica teaches us that dignity is not in enduring abuse quietly, it's in walking away with grace, even when it hurts. True strength is quiet. It doesn't scream or seek revenge. It stands in the doorway, opens it wide, and chooses freedom. Let this story be a reminder. You are never too old to begin again, never too late to choose yourself. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to close the door and say, "Here's to me."